If the people have a common vision and a common set of values, and that's established prior to their existence, that helps a lot, because then they're saying, this is what we live for, this is what we're committed to. This is where we want to invest our resources, our time, our lives. So that reduces the potential for conflict. Most churches, small or large, carry a DNA. They carry a personality, a character. And that's generally inherited from the one who was responsible, or the ones who are responsible for planting them, for starting them in the first place. That's one of the privileges of being a church planter. It's one of the privileges of being a spiritual father or mother. In chapter 4 of 1 Corinthians, Paul writes to them and he says, you don't have many fathers, but you have many guides, many teachers. And I think that's the privilege. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility on those who are pioneering new churches. There's sacrifice involved, there's stress, and there's pressure, and there's sometimes suffering involved. I think one of the privileges that counterbalances that is that we can deposit into people's lives what God's put into us. It's one of the things one of my spiritual fathers said to me when I was a young man in Amsterdam. He visited us in the city, and he looked around, and he made an interesting comment. He said, you're blessing many people. What are you building? He said, you're the spiritual father. What I see you doing is you're putting up your spiritual children for adoption without them having a choice about it. So what we were doing is we were sending our converts to local churches where there was no relational connection. And we were trying hard to build the relationships, but it was awkward. It wasn't a good fit for most of them. It was a different culture. And I felt convicted of God that I was abandoning the people that we were leading to Christ. So because of the policy of the mission organization that we were with, we would not start our own churches. So all week long, we were church. There were like 50 to 100 of us living together, doing evangelism and mission together, discipling each other. I mean, if that's not church, I don't know what is. And then on Sunday, we pretended we were not a church so we could go to church. And I had the bad job of being the guy who would get everybody out of bed in the morning, rouse them out, and say, we got to go to church. And it was contrary to everything I demonstrated and taught them all week long. And finally, because of some very wonderful spiritual papas in my life, they just said, basically, cut this out. You are church, you're planting church, go ahead and go for it. And that was so exhilarating. And one of the privileges I enjoyed was I got to intentionally mark people's lives. I could challenge them and invest in them and call them to be what God had put into my heart. And I think that's a wonderful privilege. And I respect it not only from me giving to other people, but from others like Basil and so on, and Lance, giving to those that you're a part of. It's an awesome privilege. Paul talks about that in 2 Corinthians chapter 6. He says we've each been given a field, a place of service, and that's where our influence is.